Hey guys, I guess I'm going to jump right into it real quick here, but here are some questions that have been waiting to be answered that I have been putting off that had to do with the prior industry I was in, the adult entertainment industry. I'm just kind of just go random here off the top of my head from what I can remember, at least for the questions that stand out to me because a lot of people have asked it. One of them is, what was my general experience? That's really complex for such a simplistic question. The answer is pretty complex. For the most part, most of the people I met in that industry are good people. I don't give a fuck what anyone outside of that industry perceives it as, and I know there's a perception problem on that. I don't care. I actually lived it firsthand for years. Most of the people in that industry are actually good people. They're actually decent. The professional side of it, let me make that very clear. The professional side of it, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about the studios, the actual acting, the studios, the real deal companies. That most of those people are not what other people think they are. Like, they're actually good, decent people. They just find really good money in this industry. Are there a few stragglers that are a piece of shit? Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. But that's in any industry. So what are we really saying here? You know what I'm saying? But yes, I've come across people who are pieces of shit. Very disrespectful, very entitled, very delusional. One of them is writing articles about me now. I'm not going to say any names, so I'm not giving them any clout. But you do run into people who are just liars, entitled piece of shit. But most people in that industry are actually pretty fucking decent. They're pretty normal. I've worked with a lot of really good people. Do I remember the work specifically? Like, in the front of my head? Absolutely not. I've moved on. It's been a decade. Like, really. I have literally retired. It's been a decade. I don't fucking remember. But I know I remember the vibes that people gave me. And for the most part, it was good. I've worked with good people as well, like agent-wise. One of them kind of turned awry. But the other agent I had, stellar person. I mean, literally just one of the best people I could have ever worked with, honestly, in that industry. I won't say his name only because I don't know if he's still in that industry, A, and B, he, even as an agent, was pretty private because he had another industry, a foot in another industry. So I'm not going to say his name. But stellar person. Otherwise, I would say his name. Stellar. Great to work with. And I stuck with him for the most part. You know who you are. So also, got along with a lot of the actors and actresses. Honestly, most of them don't live this false perceived life that people think they do who are not in the industry. Like, people have this weird perception, and I'm not saying it's totally false, but for the most part, it's not what it is. People have this weird perception that, like, porn stars are people who are just on drugs and sexually abused and it's drugs, sexually abused, party life. I don't know, just like way out there concept. Maybe like 3% out of all the adult stars actually live like that, and then it gets glamorized and people think that that's what it is. That's not the case for most of them. Most of them, they're either going to school and they're paying for school this way, live normal lives. I've even met some who are married, happily married. The spouse does know what they do. They fully consent to it. The marriage is healthy. I've met some people who are fresh out of school. They just don't want to go to fucking college. They see the money in this. They're willing to do it. And then, yes, you have a percentage of them who go to the industry out of desperation, like I did. For me, I was homeless when I was in my early 20s. So that was one of the ways that I found out. I didn't want to keep The people that I met along the way when I was homeless, I'm just not somebody who asks for shit. I don't like asking for shit. Like, that's it. So I said, fuck it. I'm just going to have to do something that I never thought I would do to get money that I really fucking need. Simple as that. I ended up going down that path. I did 1 year just women, and then I took a break, went and did something else. I went and did timeshare, went around the United States for a little, ended up back in Miami, and I started doing boy girl. Now, people also have this perception problem with people who work in that industry who are not in that industry. So the people who are not in that industry have a real perception delusional problem regarding people who are in the industry. And that's the part that makes that dangerous. And that was one of the reasons I knew I had to go and never look back. There's a real motherfucking problem with how people perceive people who are in that industry. And some people, for some weird reason, hate them. They hate porn stars. They hate strippers. They hate any kind of sex worker or anything like that. I find that weird. I don't totally understand it, but they don't like it. And so they perceive them as something that's much lower than anyone else around them, which is weird because they're humans. We're humans. Like, it's just very weird, very delusional, very like out of touch with reality type of perception. And so I also faced that too. And I started noticing, like, why are they, like, literally it made no sense to me. I would even ask some of them, like, why do you view them like that? Like, why? So I came across a few that tried my life. And this is the part where it's dark, because that's the part where a lot of these girls don't make it out of that industry, because most of the time when they try their life, they actually succeed. I've seen people pass in front of me in that industry. I've also seen girls that I worked with that night. Hey, love, see you tomorrow night. And then you leave like a few hours later and she's in the car, done. Like, what? You know, in a random car in front of the club. Like, it's just weird. People have tried my life several times. I was always able to get out. This is where I tell you, it's undisputable. I am divinely blessed. I am so protected, because so many of those instances could have actually succeeded, and only divine intervention could possibly explain as to why I'm still here, because any other girl in that circumstance would have died. So that's why also I'm so grateful today that every day I wake up, it's just pure gratitude, because not that I'm like all love and light. Like, I go through shit too. I get pissed off, whatever, you know, normal human emotion. But the underlying thing will always be gratitude, because I feel like I'm not supposed to be here, and I am. And it is literally the hand of God. I don't care what you believe in. Translate that to whatever you believe in. But it's literally the hand of God. It's literally the universe protecting me. I'm literally squatted up. I'm never alone. I'm never alone. I'm squatted the fuck up. They don't play about me. It doesn't matter who's around me. I mean, literally, I'm just, whatever. So, anyways, so those are some of the dark parts. Obviously, I was also held hostage 3 times. One of them that lasted a little longer than the other 2. The other 2 were pretty quick compared to one of them. The third one was pretty lengthy. I saw I couldn't fully get away from this one. So what I did instead was convince them that I was going to stay around so they could drop their guard and teach me more of what they know and how they think and all of that. And I started basically using it against them psychologically. And I outsmarted them By the time they noticed, it was too late. The guy was pissed and he was going to try my life, and he did, and it failed. That one I felt, by then I already knew I was so protected that I approached that situation with pure confidence and looked them in the face like, do it. Because I just knew. It's not that I'm putting myself, I'm already in the situation anyways. Why am I going to show fear when I know that I am divinely protected? So why not walk and talk like the fuck I am? So that's how I approached that situation head on and said, well, if you're really going to do it, then do it. I mean, I'm confident in where my soul is going to go. I don't care. Not the heaven and hell concept, but whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. But I was like, whatever, just do it. That threw that person off because they thrive off fear. This is a pretty well-known person in the streets of Miami in that type of realm. Didn't care. I don't care because greater is the one in me. So I don't care. Really don't. So I also ran into other people that tried to. They were more like quick instances that could have turned deadly, and they were preying on me. Again, I'm divinely protected. You can't touch me. You can't touch me. So even through all that dark shit, I made it out, and it's not something that I look back on and I'm like, yeah, let's do that again. No. And that's also the next question is that people keep asking me, am I going to come back? The answer is no. I'm never going back to that. I decided to go ahead and pick up another skill in another industry. I got good at it and it's working well for me. I'm succeeding. So why am I going to turn back to something like that? Second of all, I'm surrounded by people who genuinely actually love me. I'm very safe with the people that I have around me. Why would I go back to danger? That doesn't make any sense. I've done a lot of healing work within me. I've done a lot of soul searching. I've uprooted a lot of things and put better perceptions in place that hold a higher lifestyle and a higher version of me that I don't plan on ever going back. I just keep elevating. And so, and there's a lot more in my future that's very bright that has nothing to do with the prior industry other than me just telling you stories. That's it. So I don't ever plan on going back because the one thing out of the many things actually, but the one thing that I notice is that people do not value each other in that industry. It's a dog eat dog. People are willing to stab you in the back at any given moment. You have to have eyes all around your head. You're in survival mode every day. You have to watch your own back. You can't trust anybody. People are willing to stab you in the back or worse. So it's just not an industry that I ever look to ever go back to. Although, like I said, there are good people in that industry that I have come across that I will always have respect for. Most of them tend to be the actual big companies, the film companies that I worked with. And the very, 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 very few people I ran across through the strip clubs and things like that. One of them actually ended up being a very good friend of mine. Shout out to Deb. And I love her very much. And so were there a few gems that came out of that industry? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean I'm going to go back. You take your gems with you. You leave everything else behind. You learn from it. It's like I transmuted a lot of the darkness. I've transmuted my perspective on them. And I've allowed these things to continue to evolve as I evolve. And continue to hold myself accountable and continue to elevate my inner reality so that my outer reality can continuously reflect that. And that's all I've done. And I've done a lot of self-improvement, self-work. Not just because of that industry. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of shit I went through, but my childhood, you know, like I said, same thing. There's good memories, there's some good people, but there was some heavy shit I went through that I had to work through as an adult. Once I was safe enough with my family that I have now, that I've been with for years, stop. Once I felt safe, that's when all the inner work came up, and that's when I was able to actually safely hone in on myself without having to have all these eyes behind my back for survival, because I was finally safe. I was finally with people who actually love me and value me. And I was able to work on the relationships that matter most to me. And so that's where I'm at today. Not only do I have a thriving business, I'm with a man that actually really loves me for me. And I only surround myself with people who I know and discern that actually value me and show to some degree, at least, that they are also working on themselves. I don't really allow much around me other than that. You know, it's just, I work too hard for the peace that I have. And so to compromise it just to allow someone else in my inner circle is just not something that's feasible to me anymore. I love myself and I respect myself enough to uphold who my decisions and my discernment and my intuition as to who should be around me and who shouldn't. And growth is definitely one of the biggest things in my closest relationships. Growth, love, authenticity, empowerment, things like that. So, I mean, I hope I answered a lot of the questions. People tend to ask me also, like, how was it working with a certain person? I don't know. Honestly, these are not things that I keep thinking about, or that I have like memories that I look back. I don't feel that way about that industry, because it was purely business. That's it. It was only business. Were a lot of people cordial with me and respectful? Yes. Did a lot of the people in the film industry treat me right? Like with respect? Yes. But there was no emotional anything from me towards anyone in that industry whatsoever. It was just work. It was transactional. It was business. I was there to do a job, and I did it, and I did it well, and I got paid well, and then I made my exit. Like, that was it. That was it. And I made my exit at a time where I was actually getting ready to blow up to the next level. And I had to contemplate with myself to make sure of whether or not that was something I actually wanted to do. And I decided that it was not something I wanted to do. So instead, I backed away from that industry as a whole. So, and I went another route. I hope I got everyone's questions. I'm trying to remember. I'm going on like 18 minutes now in this video. You know, if you have any respectful questions, glad to answer it in the comments. Got any disrespectful questions, you will be ignored. Everyone else can attack you. I'm not wasting my time on you. But I hope I gave like the gist of that without the fine details in between. Because there's just too much. We would literally be here way too long if I literally went down each experience and like told you the fine details, the fine comb details. It's just too much. That would have to like be in a book or something so that you can read it whenever you want. But to put that in a video, we would be here for like 3 hours. But yeah, like I said, there any more questions, respectful, real legitimate questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, because I do understand also that there's a misconception about this industry, that industry as well. I'm not in it anymore, but like that industry as a whole, there's a giant misconception, and there's this unusually weird hatred towards it. I think that it's a deep psychological issue with the people who hate it with themselves, and then they take it out on them because they view the people who work in that industry as less than human. So then it's maybe easier for them to swallow in their consciousness. But I don't really actually know. So I don't know. I'm just saying something off the cuff. It's not something I looked into. It's not something I tried to understand or figure out. I just moved on from it. And I just know that I'm very grateful that I'm still here, and that the universe loves me more than the moments that I couldn't understand why. But I'm just grateful. Much love.